Welcome to ChiroSecure's Empowering Women in Chiropractic, the Facebook Live show for successful women by successful women, proving once again women make it happen. Join us each week as we bring you the best in business growth, practice management, social media marketing, networking, leadership, and lots more. If it's about women in practice and business, you'll hear it here. Now join today's host, Dr. Nicole Lindsey, as she talks overhead, debt, and creating other sources of income. And now, here's Dr. Nicole.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nicole Lindsey, founder of Dominate ChiroMarketing, where I connect chiropractors to medical doctors to build their practices. I'm your host of today's show, Empowering Women in Chiropractic, brought to you by ChiroSecure. And as always, we want to start off thanking them because without them, we would not be here. And we really appreciate them bringing all of this information to you. I am so excited about today's show. I have a special guest with me today, Dr. Linda Slak. Welcome.
Thank you, Nicole.
Dr. Linda, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She comes to us from Massachusetts, where she lives and practices, and she's been doing so for 30 years now. She's studied prenatal pediatrics. She's studied neurology with the ICPA and the Carrick Institute of Neurology. She's board certified through the Academy of Family Practice, the Council on Chiropractic Pediatrics, the American College of Functional Neurology, the American Board of Children Developmental Disorders. She's on the board of the ICPA. She is the co-founder of the Slak Institute, where she teaches advanced post-grad courses to DCs who specialize in chiropractic pediatric care. Welcome, Linda. We're so glad you're here.
So good to be with you, Nicole.
I'm exhausted after all that. You have accomplished so much.
Well, that's what 30 years of practice does, right?
Well, we hope most chiropractors can put that much into it other than their practice. You know, you've done a lot for our profession and we appreciate you. So one of the things that you've done really well, which, as you know, my experience with bridging gaps between medical doctors and chiropractors, is you've gained a lot of referrals from OBGYNs.
Yep.
So your husband, you've completed my course. I know you've taken some stuff from that and you've learned from that. But tell me, what do you think is one of the most important things to an OBGYN when it comes to building a relationship with a chiropractor?
Well, I think the OBGYNs are very open to what we do compared to like a pediatrician, for example. And they see a lot of women throughout their pregnancies who have sciatic pain, who have various areas of discomfort, mostly in the lower back, and they just don't have anything that they can do because in that circumstance, right, they can't prescribe a medication for pain relief like they would if the woman wasn't pregnant. So they're so much more open to what we do. And it's just a matter of going out and doing what you teach to meet and greet and find out what their needs are. And the referrals it's a natural thing after that.
How important do you think educating them is?
100%. It's essential because they, just like most other medical doctors in general, they have no clue what we do.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with that when you're meeting with them face to face in their offices where they're comfortable, they will often admit that, that they really had no clue.
Exactly. Right. And they don't know if you show them. I have a friend who just went and did a lunch and learn in a OBGYN office, and she took pictures and showed how our tables open up to allow for the belly as it grows so that mom can lay down face down on the table, things like that, just simple things that they have no idea, what to expect. And it's a beautiful thing to go into their offices because they're so open and accepting.
Yeah, now more than ever, right?
Yeah,
with the opioid
definitely.
crisis and all that. Now, it seems like you've really branded yourself in our profession. I mean, you are known as one of the pediatric gurus in our profession. How important do you think this branding of yourself is in your community when it comes to building these relationships with MDs and OBGYNs?
Yeah, so recently I have a friend who practices a few towns over, and she was saying that really what I have done has laid the groundwork for all the chiropractors in the community, because we are all getting many, many referrals from not only OBGYNs, but from the lactation consultants and the midwives and the doulas. And I've gone out and spoken to the mass breastfeeding councils and I'm on the board of Partners in Perinatal Health, which is we hold a big conference for nurses and midwives and doulas every year. So they're learning, and they've learned that what chiropractic is. And they can't refer them all to me because, first of all, distance, and people do travel far and wide to come see me, but I can't see them all. So that's part of the reason why I started teaching as well, to teach other doctors in the community how to better take care of children so that they can do a good job.
That's amazing. You're doing so much for our profession by doing that. And that's wonderful. So one of your specialties is taking care of infants. And let's talk about the infant brain and the importance of developmental marks and motor milestones.
Okay. So when the infant is working off of what we call the primitive brain or the brainstem, it's all instinctive, those natural reflexes that we talk about, the primitive reflexes that are so important. When I first started learning pediatrics, I just let it fly right over my head and didn't even, they weren't on my radar. But now I understand that they set the groundwork for the nervous system to work properly. So as we see infants, we can monitor their progress or their lack of progress or their brain, how well their brain's functioning by looking at those primitive reflexes initially when they're born to make sure that they're there and working properly. For example, and we see a lot of infants with latching issues, and that could be either part of low tone. They may have nervous system dysfunction from the birth process. That's what we talk about all the time. But those primitive reflexes may not have engaged well. So, for example, if an infant goes through the birth canal in a natural, normal birth through the vaginal, through the pelvis, some of those reflexes actually activate as the baby's being born. So, what would happen in a C-section then?
Right.
They don't get set into motion. So chiropractic and balancing out that nervous system and clearing any subluxations that are there helps to activate those reflexes as well. And I use it as a monitoring through care. So, and then after the very first year of life, then we develop from what we call we talk about it as the bottom up. So we start through the brainstem, up through the midbrain eventually to the cortex. And then the cortex engages. And from 0 to 2, the right brain is dominant. That allows the child to get upright and for gross motor control and coordination. And then the left brain becomes dominant between the ages of 2 to 6, where by age 6, we're about 100% there with brain development and function.
So you have milestones, you have things to look for in these different areas of the child's life and development. So this is the kind of stuff that you teach in your courses as well?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So this is good. I don't remember learning this in chiropractic. They're not teaching this in schools yet, are
I
they?
don't think they're still teaching. I don't think they're teaching it in school. I don't remember learning it in school, actually.
Okay. So what do these signs mean if you're seeing, what are some of the possible early signs of neurodevelopmental delay?
Yeah, so let's talk about motor milestones, okay? When the child, so when we're born and we're lying down and in flat, that we go from lying to what's the first milestone? Rolling over. And then the infant goes from rolling over to coming up onto all fours, and they start to rock and they start to crawl and they go to standing and then walking. But in today's society, we have all these gadgets that people get at their baby showers, like bumbo seats,
Right.
jolly jumpers, and walkers. And what these contraptions do is they get the parents putting their babies in an upright posture way before their spine's ready, way before their brain is ready for that process. So what happens is the brain then may not develop properly through those, from the bottom up through those stages, and it later on shows up as a neurodevelopmental delay. So let's talk about, let's one of the biggest things that we see where we see dysfunction happen is in crawling. So a parent will say, oh, Johnny never crawled. He went right to standing and walking. He was so advanced.
They're so proud.
and they're super proud. Or a parent will come in and say, oh yeah, she scoots on her bottom. So a baby scooting on their bottom is a sign that might tell you that those parents had that infant in a sitting posture way too early and too long each day. And it caused them to go into that scooting posture instead of going crawling. So if they don't crawl, to me, that's the most important milestone, because crawling allows them to begin to cross crawl and begin to be, so that it sets them up to form those connections then between the left and right side of the brain. So once the brain's formulated all through our entire life, we then begin to form neuronal connections from one side of the brain to the other. And that happens through movement. And what's happening with our children today? How much are they moving?
Not much.
Right.
I can tell you, my 13-year-old's pretty sedentary.
So they do a lot of, what do? They sit around and work on iPads, computers, playing video games, etc. Right? And that's not going to help this. So actually, neurons will die if there's no movement. And think of it on the other end of life, as in elderly people. When we get sedentary too, we retire from our career, and a lot of elderly people just sit on their recliner all day and not move their bodies. So movement is the most important thing for the brain, the health of the brain throughout life.
So what would that lead to most likely if you're seeing these neurodevelopmental delays or these milestones aren't being met? Does that mean that the child will have certain disorders?
Yes. So it will lead to what we call a functional disconnection in the brain, where the child will have some type of learning disability. So we see today 1 in 6 children have some type of learning delay by the time they get to school. And if we catch these, the neural development early, like between 0 and 2 with these children, and we can make sure or ensure that it happens correctly, they will get to school and they won't have those issues. But now it's really most of the time not picked up until the child enters school.
So yeah, who's checking for these? Who's paying attention to this?
Not the pediatricians, unfortunately. No one is. There's like occupational therapy, but then again, you wouldn't engage with an occupational therapist until you're at the age of school where it would be recommended. So really, chiropractors are the only doctors who are looking at these issues and dealing with them and helping parents.
And thank you for putting this all together and teaching chiropractors this. I haven't done your course yet, and I need to. because this is really important, and somebody needs to connect the dots, right? Somebody needs to help these children.
Exactly.
So have you found connecting with pediatricians? I know we briefly talked about this in the past, but are pediatricians open to this when you tell them, I have ways I can look for this and we can work together?
So no, and from infancy on, the pediatricians are usually counter to what we recommend or what a lactations consultant would recommend. For example, with latching issue, the pediatricians are only looking at weight. Is the baby gaining enough weight? And if they're not, they're going to pressure onto the parent or to the mother saying, oh, you don't have enough milk supply, it's too low, or why stress out, just get some formula and give it to the baby. Like, many babies are fed with formula and they survive and they do fine. So they're not on board with us, and it's on my list, but I've got so much on my list right now that it's one of the biggest challenges but we do need to go out there and educate them, but they are not as open as the other providers we spoke about.
I've found that too in my 15 years of connecting with MDs, that pediatricians are by far the hardest to build relationships with. So maybe you and I can collaborate on this and try and figure out a way to bridge that gap, because it's much needed.
It's so important, because they will also, like, I've had people who were scheduled as a new patient in the office, and then the mother asks the pediatrician says, oh no, don't take the baby to a chiropractor. So if they understood what we did, they absolutely would be fine with it.
Right. Yep, I agree. What do you think is the most important thing for a student listening to this right now, or a DC that wants to learn more about taking care of infants? What do they need to know?
I think they need to learn how to do a proper examination, and to know what to look for, like the reflexes that we spoke about, and how to address them. And there's another issue that we didn't speak about today, but there's a lot of infants being diagnosed with tongue and lip tie now. So those infants are being referred to us as well, and we need to know how to do cranial work. I think cranial work is number one to become an expert, or good at locating and correcting cranial faults.
Well, we could go on for another 20 minutes. There's so much here, and thank you so much for your time today and sharing your knowledge, expertise with our audience and all these DCs that have tuned in today. So,
and thank you for all you do, Nicole.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Look forward to working with you more together on this. So thank you all for watching. If you did not get enough of pediatrics and chiropractic, don't worry, you can tune in next week to our pediatric show right here with Dr. Tony Ebel. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Join us each week as we bring you the best in business growth, practice management, social media marketing, networking, leadership, and lots more. If it's about women in practice and business, you'll hear it here. We hope you enjoyed this week's Facebook Live event. Please like us on Facebook, comment, and share. We look forward to seeing all of you next week for another episode of Empowering Women in Chiropractic. Now, go ahead and hit the share button and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. This has been a ChiroSecure production.